Hello, everyone. My name is Gregory, and this is The View from Out Here. Today, I want to read you a Facebook post that I talked about in my last episode. It was attributed to actor director Ron Howard on the Facebook version, but Snopes.com tells us that it was originally written by a woman named Lori Gallagher-Witt. I want to read it to you because it's a good breakdown of what liberals and progressives actually believe against the propaganda coming from the right about us. So let's get started. I'm a liberal, she writes, but that doesn't mean that what a lot of you think it does. I believe in fiscal responsibility, which I have not seen on either side recently. Let's break it down, shall we? Because, quite frankly, I'm getting a little tired of being told what I believe and what I stand for. Spoiler alert, not every liberal is the same, though a majority of liberals I know think along roughly these same lines. Number one, I believe a country should take care of its weakest members. A country cannot call itself civilized when its children, disabled, sick, and elderly are neglected. Period. Number two, I believe health care is a right, not a privilege. Somehow that's interpreted as I believe Obamacare is the end-all be-all. This is not the case. I'm fully aware that the Affordable Care Act has problems, that a national health care system would require everyone to chip in, and that it's impossible to create one that is devoid of flaws. But I have yet to hear an argument against it that makes letting people die because they can't afford health care a better alternative. I believe healthcare should be far cheaper than it is, and that everyone should have access to it. And no, I'm not opposed to paying higher taxes in the name of making that happen. Number three, I believe education should be affordable. It doesn't necessarily have to be free, though it works in other countries, so I'm mystified as to why it can't work here. But at the end of the day, there is no excuse for students graduating college saddled with 5 or 6 figure debt. Number four, I don't believe your money should be taken from you and given to people who don't want to work. I have literally never encountered anyone who believes this, ever. I just have a massive moral problem with a society where a handful of people can possess the majority of the wealth, while there are people literally starving to death, freezing to death, or dying because they can't afford to go to the doctor. Fair wages, lower housing costs, universal health care, affordable education, and the wealthy actually paying their fair share would go a long way to alleviating this. Somehow believing that makes me a communist. Number five, I don't throw around my willingness to pay higher taxes lightly. If I'm suggesting something that involves paying more, well, it's because I'm fine with paying my fair share as long as it's actually going to something besides lining corporate pockets or bombing other countries while Americans die without health care. Number six, I believe companies should be required to pay their employees a decent, livable wage. Somehow this is always interpreted as me wanting burger flippers to be able to afford a penthouse apartment and a Mercedes. What it actually means is that no one should have to work 3 full-time jobs just to keep their head above water. Restaurant servers should not have to rely on tips. Multi-billion-dollar companies should not have employees on food stamps. Workers shouldn't have to work themselves into the ground just to barely make ends meet. And minimum wage should be enough for someone to work 40 hours and live reasonably. Number seven, I'm not anti-Christian. I have no desire to stop Christians from being Christians, to close churches, to ban the Bible, to forbid prayer in school, etc. By the way, prayer in school is not illegal. Compulsory prayer in school is, and it should be. All I ask is that Christians recognize my right to live according to my beliefs. When I get pissed off that a politician is trying to legislate scripture into law, I'm not offended by Christianity. I'm offended that you're trying to force me to live by your religion's rules. You know how you get really upset when Muslims try to impose Sharia law on you? That's how I feel about Christians trying to impose biblical law on me. Be a Christian. Do your thing. Just don't force it on me. Number 8, I don't believe LGBTQ people should have more rights than you. I just believe that they should have the same rights as you. Number 9, I don't believe illegal immigrants should come to America and have the world at their feet, especially since this is not what's happening. Spoiler, undocumented immigrants are ineligible for all those programs they're supposed to be abusing. And if they're stealing your job, it's because your employer is hiring illegally. I believe there are far more humane ways to handle undocumented immigration than our current practices, i.e., detaining children, splitting up families, ending DACA, etc. Number 10, I don't believe the government should regulate everything, but since greed is such a driving force in our country, we need regulations to prevent cut corners, environmental destruction, tainted food and water, unsafe materials and consumable goods or medical equipment, etc. It's not that I want the government's hands on everything. I just don't trust people trying to make money to ensure that their products, practices, etc. are actually safe. Is the government devoid of shadiness? Of course not. But with those regulations in place, consumers have recourse if they're harmed and companies are liable for medical bills, environmental cleanup, etc. Just kind of seems like common sense when the alternative to government regulation is letting companies bring their bottom line into the equation. Number 11, I believe our current administration is fascist. Not because I dislike them or because I can't get over an election, but because I've spent too many years reading and learning about the Third Reich to miss the similarities. Not because any administration I dislike must be Nazis, but because things are actually mirroring authoritarian and fascist regimes that we know of in the past. Number 12, I believe the systemic racism and misogyny in our society is much worse than many people think and desperately needs to be addressed, which means those with privilege, white, straight, male, economically privileged, etc., need to start listening, even if you don't like what you're hearing, so we can start dismantling everything that's causing people to be marginalized. Number 13, I am not interested in coming after your blessed guns, nor is anyone serving in the government. What I am interested in is the enforcement of present laws and enacting new common sense gun regulations. Got another opinion? Put that on your page, not mine. Number 14, and this is the one I talked about in my last episode. I believe in so-called political correctness. I prefer to think it's social politeness. If I call you Chuck and you say you prefer to be called Charles, I'll call you Charles. It's the polite thing to do. Not because everyone is a delicate snowflake, but because, as Maya Angelou put it, when we know better, we do better. When somebody tells you that a term or phrase is more accurate or less hurtful than the one that you're using, you now know better. So why not do better? How does it hurt you not to hurt another person? Number 15, I believe in funding sustainable energy, including offering education to people currently working in fossil fuels so that they can change jobs. There are too many sustainable options available for us to continue with fossil fuels. Sorry, billionaires, maybe try investing in something else. Number 16, I believe that women should not be treated as a separate class of human. They should be paid the same as men who do the same work, should have the same rights as men, and should be free from abuse. Why on earth shouldn't they be? I think that about covers it. Bottom line is that I'm a liberal, I'm going to learn to pronounce that word. I think we should take care of each other. That doesn't mean that you should work 80 hours a week so that your lazy neighbor can get all your money. It just means I don't believe there is any scenario in which preventable suffering is an acceptable outcome as long as money is saved. That is her 16 points, and I agree with all of that. I mean, I talked about number 14 in my last episode, so you know with that caveat. But I really do think that liberals are misunderstood on a daily basis, and it's because of propaganda. Anyway, I want to thank you for hanging with me so far, and if anything that you're seeing here is of value to you, please take a second to like and subscribe using the buttons below. And I also encourage you to have a look at the description below so that you'll know how to get one of my books that I've written for you. I also have some merchandise down there that I hope you'll at least take a look at. Anyway, my name is Gregory, and this has been The View from Out Here. Much love.